The usual mistake that people do when they put a lot of text is when people read, they cannot multitask. When people read, they don't listen to you. So especially if you're on the screen, they want to shout, okay, shut up for a second. Let me finish reading your slide. So the idea is...
All right, we're live. Thanks for doing this, Yan. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Harsh. Thank you for inviting me to your new podcast.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So to start off with, I want to ask you something. What made you start Qualistery? What was your vision when you started the company?
So when I been into the pharmaceutical industry for quite some time, I realized that it's very difficult to progress and learn about new trends in the internet without having to read a lot of boring documentation. And the vision was to create online education that is interesting, which is based on visual storytelling and something that people can learn as they go without having to spend a lot of money going in really expensive training and just looking at the boring slide that we a lot of times see in our industry.
All right, and the name itself, Qualistery, it's kind of unique. So, how did you come up with that name? What were you thinking when you decided to name that as your company?
So the idea at first was to educate people about good manufacturing practices, which is basically quality. So it's a combination of words, quality and mastery. So it should help them to master the quality in manufacturing and good manufacturing practice, GLP, medical devices, and so on. Hopefully it will develop in this area.
I see. Makes sense. So when you are coming up with topics for creating these learning materials within the GMP learning space, walk me through what are some of the ways that you come up with these topics to plan out your learning materials?
Right. So what happens, we usually speak with the experts. So a lot of the time I bring experts, subject matter experts, leaders within the pharmaceutical industry to speak. And I have realized that you can just bring the topic and ask them to speak about it, but the best way is to brainstorm with those people who are on the floor and doing the hard lifting and try to understand where they identify the biggest issues during their daily work routine. And I work a lot with consultants, so those people see a lot. They go to different companies, they see the biggest issues. So usually it comes from discussing with them what they feel is the biggest issue and how we can help people solve it.
Nice. And when you are reaching out to consultants to come and speak at these events, how do you go about promoting those events to the different audience? How do you promote them?
So you're talking about right now about getting the speakers to go on the show, or how do we later promote the training?
Oh, I meant to say when you get the people, like you mentioned, you reach out to consultants and have them come on and share the content or share the experiences that they've had with GMP learning. So how do you get the audience to come to that event, right? Whether it's a webinar or a training session or whatever the case may be.
Right. So we have quite many channels to do it. So when I've just started, it was purely LinkedIn. So you go to LinkedIn, you share about the event. Right now, we already have quite an extensive mailing list. We have LinkedIn groups where people just get in and wait for us to publish new events. We have Facebook groups, we have YouTube, we have mobile groups. So we have quite a lot of ways to reach people and let them know about the event. But what we do most is not just put a flyer about the event and say, okay, we have an event, because people are bored of looking at ads, right? So we go quite a long road to create interesting content about each event. So we create videos, we create blog posts, we create different interesting material which hooks the people and gives them pieces of information which they find relevant, interesting. Then we tell them, learn more about it at our events. And this is, I think, the way to go, because you give them a taste of what they can learn, and they feel it is relevant to them. And then they do the next step and they register for a webinar on a similar topic or the same topic.
All right, that makes sense. So when people, I've had the pleasure of speaking at one of your events about the cloud and on-premise QMS. So I have been through that process and I know a little bit of what you shared. But so if you were to give some tips to training managers or training leaders who are working in life science companies about making their training materials more engaging, what would you share with them? Because the standard training is, read an SOP, read and understand, take a quiz, or go to a classroom training. But there's a lot of opportunity to sort of make the training more engaging. So, what would be some tips that you would share for people who are working in a pharmaceutical company?
Right. So that's a good question, Harsh. So, as I mentioned, when people go to training, mostly in a GMP, they encounter a lot of uh, very bland training. A lot of the time you see screenshots of regulations or screenshots of SOPs, and it's not very engaging. So when I contemplated on creating Qualistery, I've spent quite a lot of time in researching the art of presentation and read books about visual storytelling. And especially when we do things online, but not only online, you get to understand how really good training should be. So, an example of a good talks, you can go to X Talks, right? You see how engaging it is. It's the person is speaking. It's a very short bursts of information, and they use a lot of imagery, right? So, what we do also in our training, which everybody should use the tools, is we are trying to do the training via visual storytelling, which basically um, says that the the usual mistake that people do when they put a lot of text is when people read, they cannot multitask. When people read, they don't listen to you. So especially if you're on the screen, they want to shout, "Okay, shut up for a second. Let me finish reading your slide."
Yep.
Right. So the idea is only to show really short sentences or only keywords and speak your ideas about it if you want to use words. But it's better to use images, because images evoke emotions, and you remember emotions but you don't remember a long boring story. So the idea of creating really great um, educational program is to use a lot of imagery, really little text. And you need to make sure that people see on the screen only what you're talking about. So, for example, if you have a huge diagram with a lot of many points, you will lose the crowd instantly because they're starting reading all the small points. So, if you are talking about the process, make sure that the people see on the screen only what you're talking about at this point. So, we a lot of people use PowerPoint, but they use the animation for the false purposes. They use it, I don't know, just to make it gimmicky, just to make it nice. But the point of the animations is to make sure that things appear when you want them to appear at the right time. So this
Right.
is one of my tips for trainers: less words, more images. Make it compelling, make it interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you totally on that. That's why there's this old saying, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So you can either use 1,000 words or you can use a really nice picture that speaks those words. So yeah, I don't like reading slide decks with tons of information. So I agree with you on that. I know you have a background before you started Qualistery. I was researching. You have a background in quality assurance. You've done, audits. You worked in QA and QC. There's a lot of talk about how quality assurance is treated or how the role is looked at. Um, What is your perspective of how quality assurance is treated or looked at, and what do you think it should be in the future?
Right. So I think it's not a secret that many companies struggle with the quality assurance being seen as a policing unit. And many companies and many quality assurance unit have difficulties handling other departments because they usually come with demands. And we see it with a lot of companies, and it's something that is quite common. And this is something that we want to get out from. So this is something that I've also talked about in my podcasts with different consultants. So the vision is to go from one quality assurance unit that controls everything to a total quality assurance. So basically, I think the idea is to give the same responsibility for quality for all the departments, and having quality assurance be more of a guide and not the one who controls or polices or give notes and gets mad and controls the SOPs. So I think it's also something that I've seen in the companies that I worked at, that the quality assurance sometimes takes over the SOPs, and they decide, okay, we need this SOP, or we need to do the process this way and that way. And then they meet in the QA, write some SOPs, but then it also impacts the logistics people, and the logistics people come and say, what is this? This process doesn't work, it cannot work, it doesn't work with our processes. So one of the things that the quality assurance must understand, that they must be team players. They must bring people on board, because you cannot just talk quality. You need to do quality, and the way to do quality is not to punish people for deviations. It's to teach them to understand why they are doing what they're doing. And if they have responsible people for quality in their department who manage the SOPs, who also control it from within, so it's not so they're the contact person to the QA. So I think it's a better way of creating better culture. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Quality to me is a role that has the ability to influence the thinking of the organization. And I feel that, quality assurance oftentimes, like you said, gets looked at as a role that's just a gatekeeper. But with the different types of tools and techniques that are available under the quality assurance space, there's a big opportunity to, start doing quality a little bit differently, whether you're using technology or whether you're using the standard quality best practices like 5 Whys or PDCA. All the quality geeks out there will know what these are. But it doesn't matter what you do, but just the goal should not be, it's not a one and done thing. Like you mentioned, you don't just write an SOP and say, yes, this is a good SOP, I'm done with quality. It's a continuous effort. You have to try to make it 0.1% or 1% better every day. And to me, that's the real job of a quality leader, is to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, 100%.
So you talked about looking at SOPs and seeing things in your experience. You've also done a lot of auditing, and I want to go into the audit side of things. So when you go do an audit of a process or a system or any of your clients, what are some of the things that you look for in every audit, regardless of what the scope is?
Right. So I believe that I would always look into the deviations, look at how they deal with them, because the deviations at some point one can say they're the core for all the activities. It's like a web, right? So it shows how people deal with risks. It shows how people deal with change control and with the kappas. So you can realize and see how much time they spent on each deviation, and what risk analysis they made, what root cause analysis they made. So what happened with these deviations, and for this you can see uh, who is involved with this. Do they involve the right people, and do they do a real root cause analysis, or they just close it as a human error, as happens a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So I think deviations are really important thing to look at. I also um, always try to understand whether people do things according to the SOPs, according to what they should be doing, because sometimes there are two uh, two different ways companies do things. So sometimes you have great SOPs, but people don't follow them
Yeah.
and they don't do it. And sometimes you have really great processes. So you talk with the people and they excited and say, I'm doing this and that, and this is my job, and this is 1, 2, 3, and that's what I do. But then you look at the SOP and it's nothing like this. It's really bad. So it's really important to see the correlation between the SOP and what actually people are doing, and question them about it. And it's before the tour and during the tour. So it happens that you go on a tour and and then you see something. So, for example, I was on a tour in a warehouse, and they have a sticker which says, um, you need to wash those pellets once in a year, and the sticker shows the month, and it says, okay, when this is on top you should wash it. And they have just a sticker. And then you ask the manager, okay, here the sticker looks a bit crooked, so what when should this be washed, in March on or February? And they look at me, oh, I don't know, I need to ask them, but you're the manager here, right? And then you go to the SOP and you try to understand, right? So there is a lot of good explanations, but then when you ask people, you understand, okay, something is not very good in the processes, right? And sometimes you go and you look at, for example, the deviations SOPs and risk analysis SOPs, and they use complete different terms to uh, w- what deviations is, or how to rate deviations. So one says that a minor, major, or critical, and the other one uses completely other terms. So sometimes you see systems which are not aligned. But another thing that I usually uh, do, and I think it's important. So usually when you go on an audit and you get attached a subject matter expert who is really great at his job, and he goes on a tour with you, and he talks and he talks and he talks, and sometimes the companies really know who to attach to, somebody who's really excited about the job, but it has almost zero relevance to what you're auditing, or to what you want to audit, right?
Yep.
So sometimes you can just tell them, okay, you know what, let's just skip it and let's move on. Or sometimes you can use this time to observe, because they think when you're listening you're not observing. So sometimes, you um, listen with half a ear, because okay, it's not really relevant, and then use this time to observe, because sometimes they don't want you to see something, that's why they're talking, right? And then you
Yeah.
see what's really happening. So this is some of the things that I always try to do during audits.
That's great. Those were some really deep dive pointers for people to consider, if whether they're being audited or they're going on audits. Those are some really important points. I want to dive into a little bit about your personal brand. When I started LinkedIn, creating content on LinkedIn, started looking at people in the life sciences industry and what they were doing, your name kept popping up. You have your personal brand, which is you are trying to make GMP learning more accessible. You're trying to share that from your experience, and also connecting other experts and sharing that with the community. So, what imagine this, I send you a message and say, Jan, I want to create my personal brand on LinkedIn in 2023. What are three things you want to say to me of how I can go to the journey of defining what I want to be known for, or my own niche?
Right. So this is something I think it's very important, and I think everybody who is on LinkedIn should be working on uh, his personal brand, because I believe that LinkedIn is no more a a virtual CV. It's becoming more like Facebook with time. So it's social media. So first of all, you need to define who you are and who your audience is. So this is the most important part, because I do see a lot of people who try to share knowledge, but they miss the audience. So they forget why they're doing this. So, for example, first of all, define who your audience is and create the content for them. So, what the problem is, if you're in GMP, share knowledge about GMP. If you're, you want to share, you need to decide what you want to share about. You want to share about pharma, about quality. Do you want to share about business or flowers? So you need to decide what you
Yeah.
want to share, right? So I see a lot of people who do try to make a name for themselves also in our industry, but I see them share a lot of content which is irrelevant to the industry. So they try to take general things which they see marketing influencers do, because
Hmm.
it's general, and they try to apply the same things, uh, like for example, I see people say, "Oh, you know what happened this day? Columbus discovered America," or this and that. So they post a lot, but the content misses the audience. So this is one of the things: define who your audience is and who you want to be and what you want to share.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because I have faced a lot of challenges trying to, when I started creating content, going through those processes. And when I was listening to you, I felt like you were talking to where I was 6 months or a year ago, because I was going through the same challenge of finding my audience and defining what I wanted to create, because creating content at random doesn't give you the results. Yes, you might get a little bit of engagement if you comment on a trending topic. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. As you mentioned, how LinkedIn is becoming more of Facebook or other personal storytelling type of platforms. But at the end of the day, you have to share some expertise from your experience and connect with that audience, whatever that is for you. So I totally relate to that. I want to dive into a little bit of the actual content, right? So, whenever somebody decides, once they've found their audience and they know, okay, I'm going to create content about software development lifecycle, or I'm going to talk about project management. Let's say they define that, they have their audience. There is multiple types of content on LinkedIn. Obviously, the easiest one is a text post, like somebody can write 3 or 4 lines of text and just send it out, or they can go create other types. What do you think somebody who's new, if they are going to do that in 2023, how do they start with content creation and slowly branch out into different categories within that content?
Right. So after you defined your audience and your purpose, right? So it all varies what you want to achieve, right? You want to um, get a better job, or you want to get new clients, or you just want to have fun there. So you need to understand this, and then you go to the content, right? So there are different types of content which you can create. You can just write something. You can use images. You can use tools to create a more uh, eye-catching information. You can create videos. You can do so much, right? So I think it's all about the trial and error there to understand what your audience likes, and you need to stick with it for a while. So you cannot post one image and say, "Oh, nobody's seen it. That's it. I'm like dropping off on LinkedIn or changing completely," because it all depends on how many people are already following you. Depends on the time that you. So sometimes it's just pure luck, right? That
Mm-hmm.
so you need to be there until people already realize they like their content and follow you. But it's a trial and error. But I would start with the easiest way, right? To try sharing text, and so I wouldn't share text without images, but because you want to catch something eye catchy, so you don't want to edit the video, so just put an image that relates to it without Google something. Just put, if it's not you don't sell anything, so you can post it, you can give credit to it, so you can use something for free if you don't use it to sell something, and you can put some relevant text to it, right? So usually just text, people, it won't catch the attention, right? So at least you can use emojis, right?
Yeah.
And also learn how to use text better, right? So how to do the spaces between the lines, so you don't want to you need to make it easy for people to read. So there is a lot of science and trial and error behind it. So you can browse through the LinkedIn and see what posts you stop it, what catches your eye, and what you're just scrolling through, what texts are you reading until the end, and what texts you're getting bored with because they're like too clunky or something. So this is
Right.
a yeah. So to summarize, you have different options, right? You can create images, you can create only text with images, you can do like videos, you can do like short vlogs, really a lot. So I think everybody's familiar with Facebook and different tools, so it's not, nowadays it's not different, so you can use everything.
Yep, I agree with you on the part, especially when you said about looking at what catches your eye when you're scrolling, because obviously, any social media platform is a combination of consuming and creating content. So if you're a creator or you're putting stuff out on LinkedIn, know that you have to have a healthy ratio of that. If you're just consuming and not creating, it doesn't add any value to the community. If you have some experience, just share it, engage with other people who are in your field, because that also helps your posts get more visibility.
Yeah, very
And
important.
there's a reciprocation that other people are
Yeah,
going to engage with
yeah,
your stuff. Yeah.
100%. So this is something very important to mention. So on LinkedIn, you don't want to hide. So remember, you're on LinkedIn to improve your career, your professional life. So if you are hiding and you're afraid to show who you are, you're missing the point of LinkedIn. So if you just want to see what happens, you can go on TikTok or Facebook and scroll through, right?
Right.
But on LinkedIn, you need to engage. And I can also give example why it's important to engage, because when I post things and I see that people are reacting to my post and they liking the post, it sticks into my mind. And at some point, I need a speaker on something, or I need I can refer somebody to a job that's I heard about from someone. First of all, the names will pop to my mind, the people who are already interacting with me, because it, it's easier for me, and it's, as you said, you give back, right? So that's why it's important always to be, to react, to put a comment, you know.
Yep. And just one more tip to anybody who's listening this, it's also important when, as Jan just talked about, you see the person's face, which is why next to your face, there's 2 or 3 lines that LinkedIn gives you to sort of share what you want to be known for. So if you're working in a company, you probably have your title at that company, which is, one way to do it. But if you're just a freelancer, a consultant, or a business owner, you want to have some keywords that you want people to know you for, because they're not just seeing your picture, but they're also seeing, oh, Jan's the guy who, talks about GMP learning, or so and so is a person that talks about project management. So think carefully of utilizing your purpose in those 2 or 3 lines. It is something, advice that I got when I was starting out, and how to use that, because people will keep seeing your face and that purpose, and then they already know what you do professionally and how you can help them.
Right, so very important. So this is a really good point. So when people hover over your name, that this is what they see, and you want to catch their information. So you need to see how many keywords you can put in and make sure that they represent you the best, because sometimes you need to enlarge it to see the whole picture. So the first 3 words are probably the most important for you.
Yeah. So I have to ask you this for selfish reasons as a content creator. What kind of tools or technology do you use either for creating or publishing content? Do you have any ones that are your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Yeah, so We use different tools. So when I started, I used Canvas. I think it's the most popular tool. It's free, and most of the designs there you don't need to pay for them. So since then we moved to additional tools that are more premium. But Canva is uh, is magic, and you can do, as we mentioned, it's really easy to use. You don't need to have any Photoshop skills. You go in, you want to talk about some topics, and you want to catch the audience's eye. Just go inside and use Canva to make nice, relevant images from this. So Canva is one of the tools that is used. Then, of course, there are tools that help you post on social media. So there are many tools out there. For example, Hootsuite is very popular, I believe.
Yeah.
Hootsuite, right? There is some other newer tools like Okoya. There are tools like Sociamonials, different tools. So there's a bunch of them already that help you pre-schedule the posts. So sometimes you want to post personally, but sometimes when it's a general post, you're going to be on vacation. You can pre-schedule the posts, and then they go out. So I think two of the most important tools in your toolkit in social media content creation is Canva and some scheduling tool. And
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, totally agree. I use Canva a lot as well, not just for social media, but even for like creating business slide decks and
yeah,
other sorts of materials.
yeah,
So
yeah, very, very good. And for video, you have also different tools which you can Google, like a Wave Video, different tools that allow you to create engaging videos without the knowledge of video editing. So I also use more professional tools when I sometimes edit my videos, which you can see on my profile, where I use a Premiere Pro, where you need a green screen, you need a lot of
yeah,
animations. But there are other tools. Even in Canva, you can already edit videos and cut videos and add animations to them, or add like stickers. So
Mm.
many tools out there. So for the people who want to check it out, you can just Google it, and you get like usually a list of best tools for this, best tool for this. Then you get like ten options which you can choose what fits you best.
Yeah. 2023 is around the corner. What are some of your goals, personal, professional, anything that you're shooting for in accomplishing in 2023?
Right. So we at Qualistery, so our goal to is a we're now on a growth path. So we really want to provide more, and we want to create more partnerships with companies who support our goal of free education, and we want to bring more trainings, more free trainings, more webinars, more events. So this year, 2022, was really great. We had around 15,000 attendees in total this year.
Wow.
And I think that next year it will be even better, because this year was the first year where we started working with partners, and it just grew really quickly, and we understand how valuable it is for our partners and sponsors, and for the community who get the knowledge. And I think from here we want to um, increase the numbers of webinars that we do, and we also want to get into on-demand training, where people can maybe get access to older webinars, or even full-scale courses, or short bits in on-demand web page, where they can just take their time, choose their time, and keep learning. So this is the main goals professionally. And I think like all of us in the personal arena, after this COVID years, I think it should be time, this year maybe, to find ways also, to relax, to disconnect a bit, to find a good vacation. Because when I think you understand it well, when you start a business, it's like your baby. you sleep and you think about it. And sometimes it's
Yep.
important to say, okay, let's disconnect from it a bit and get so replenish yourself mentally.
Yeah, totally. Especially if you're a single business owner or consultant, it is hard to prioritize rest versus going, especially if you're in the growing phase and you have, bigger and bolder goals. You want to go out and do things, but remember to prioritize rest, because if you can't function at your full potential, you're not going to be able to get to your goals. So yeah, that's a really good advice for anyone. So you talked about your goals for 2023, which is 15,000 in 2022 is already incredible. So wish you all the success for 2023 and how much influence these training materials will have on the community. What are some ways speakers or partners who want to collaborate with you to help you achieve your goal, what are some ways they can reach out to you, or do you have any ideas of how they can collaborate with Qualistery in 2023?
Right. So yeah, two pulse of corporations, right? So we work with a lot of speakers, right? We have worked with consultants such as yourself, right? Like you came to our webinar also from one of our partners, Qualio, and so many times we work with independent consultants, and speaking at our webinars is a great advantage for their career, their business, because almost every consultant who spoke on our webinars, he says, okay, you know what, I did this 40 minutes talk, but I got a great projects from it, and it gives them a business. So it's a really great opportunity because we really have a really high attendance rate, and you get your name out there uh, worldwide. So really great opportunity to do it at Qualistery, and even if you see other opportunities to do it with other companies, you should really jump on it, because the time that you invest in doing such a speaking opportunity, you get back much more in business. So I think it's a no-brainer also for consultants. So if you want to consider speaking at one of our webinars, you can reach out us through our website. We have a section for speakers where you can fill out a form, www.qualistery.com. You can also send us directly an email at info@qualistery.com, and then just let us know your goals and why you want to speak and what's your expertise, and then we can discuss it, right? And of course, the partners and sponsors, again, the same through qualistery.com. And we really love our partners because they, uh, although they want to sponsor, they want to get their name out there, but they see our purpose of knowledge sharing. So it's not like when you come to our webinars, it's not like you're going to some sales conference. So everybody knows when you come to our webinars, it's educational, and our partners, sponsors really support this vision, really help us out with that. So we are really grateful for them, and it really also helps them with their business because they get exposure to thousands of pharma professionals. So it's a really amazing opportunity for everybody, and that's what's great about our platform, right?
Yeah. Listen, thanks again. This was just an amazing conversation. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing all that you're doing at Qualistery and also on LinkedIn. Uh, what's the best way for people to connect with you? I'm guessing LinkedIn.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me. Yeah, so if you wanna follow our content, so of course you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and very available, very active there. And if you need something specific, you can shoot me an email as well. And yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Jan. Wish you all the best for 2023. And I'll stay in touch and keep following your content.
Thank you very much, Hers, again for the invitation, and good luck to you.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.